trade union group, and actually was the chair of the organising committee for the Climate Jobs Caravan. So had a massive role in making this the success that it was. So Suzanne.
Thank you.
It's great to see you.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and thank you for coming, because it's quite incredible with the Climate Jobs Caravan that we managed to pick. Well, no, it wasn't the worst 2 weeks of the year in terms of weather, but it was pretty impressively bad weather for 2 weeks when they Carol went to
Newcastle.
Well, it's always freezing in Newcastle.
Oh, right.
I can say that because that's where I come from. I mean, when they were in Birmingham, they had hailstones. They had hailstones in Birmingham. So, you know, they've been out and about with the caravan, and we picked the hottest Friday night to have our final meeting. So thank you to everybody who has come along tonight. A lot of what I would have said has already been said. We wrote this report a few years ago. We wrote it because there was clearly a need for trade unionists and environmentalists to recognise that we were not mutually, the argument about jobs and the environment was not a mutually exclusive argument, that whereas, you know, the attitude of somehow trade unionists and environmentalists couldn't come together, that we didn't have a shared project, all of that stuff was not true. When we produced this report, initially it was aimed at tackling with that argument that jobs and the environment are somehow mutually exclusive, that if you're interested in looking after jobs, you can't be interested in looking after the environment, and if you're interested in looking after the environment, you can't care about jobs. Initially the report was written for that reason. And very quickly we hit the crisis, the 2008 ongoing crisis, and therefore the purpose of the report became even more compelling. And so did the environmental case, actually. You know, since this report was written, I can't remember how many UN summits have come and gone with no impact whatsoever. In fact, they're taking steps back every time they meet that UN summit rather than taking steps forward. Again, people have already talked about it. In this report, we argued that we weren't ruling out business, but we were basically saying that business hasn't delivered on this. Business's agenda is about profit. And because they can't identify big bucks to be made out of climate jobs, and again, somebody mentioned it, climate jobs, we argue, these are not just jobs that you whack green in front of it, oh, that's okay, it's a green job. Tony said it. These are jobs which are about reducing emissions. We identified we need to reduce emissions by 80% in this country. What are the jobs that will allow us to reduce emissions by 80%? In that sense, we argued business isn't delivering on that front, isn't interested in delivering that front in a meaningful way, and therefore we need a climate service. In other words, this needs to be a marshalling of the forces that are able to create those kind of jobs and do it on the basis of need. I mean, that was the argument about the health service. We need a health service, and therefore we are able to deliver it. We need jobs that can reduce emissions, and therefore a climate service. So we did all of that, and that was all very, very, very good and right. Let's bring it up to date a little bit, because a number of people touched on the government and what the government is doing. Barbara talked about subsidies. And a lot of people will have picked up on the Tory Lib Dem government's last budget. It hit the headlines quite rightly as a budget for the rich. What it didn't hit the headlines for is it's a budget for rich fossil fuel companies as well. And the energy bill is exactly that. And what is happening at this moment in time is something that various people have identified as a major concern when it comes to the question of tackling the climate. The energy policies that governments are putting in place are locking us in to a fossil fuel economy for generations to come. So what they have just done in the budget is they've given massive subsidies. I'm sure much of it was hidden, but even the ones that aren't hidden, 3.2 billion for oil and gas exploration off the Shetland coast. The most recent energy budget, the energy bill that Graham mentioned, is an absolute scandal as far as I'm concerned. It's an absolute scandal. They have located within that energy policy fossil fuels as the key element within our energy mix. Renewable energies have been absolutely sidelined. It's a dash for gas, and it's about allowing those companies to stay in the dominant position in terms of providing energy. Within that dash for gas is of course the worrying new development around fracking. They are very, very keen to follow what has happened in America and actually turn over the majority of energy policy around fracking, the smashing of rocks in order gas from it. And you see, what concerns me very much is that areas, for example, that I grew up in, it's not just areas like that I grew up in the northeast, where those industries that were closed down in the 1980s have never really been replaced. You've got endemic and chronic unemployment. Unless there are alternatives, unless there are real alternatives, actually an argument that says you can get jobs through fracking is an argument that has potential to be persuasive unless there is an alternative to it. And that is the importance, I would say, of the climate jobs policy. Now, that report has been on the go. This report has been on the go for a while. It's a great report. Everyone who's read it says it's a really good report. It makes real sense. But what we identified is that we have to now turn this from a very, very good report into a campaigning tool. It's something where in local communities, nationally, people are using this actually as part of their armory to fight for change and to fight for an alternative to the austerity that people are clearly rejecting right across Europe. So thus we set off with our climate jobs caravan, which was a pretty crazy idea actually, to be honest, inspired by the African caravan that Graham spoke about, except I believe a lot of the African caravan took place by foot. We did try and think about this. We did think about it actually. That's what we did. We thought about it, and then it clearly, as far as we were concerned, was not going to be possible. So we went with, okay, that's all right. We can move around from city to city, and we came up with the idea of a caravan. A little bit worried about it in the British context. Caravan doesn't mean exactly the same thing as it does in terms of a Trans-African caravan, but nevertheless, it seemed to touch a chord with people. And so then we visited 25 towns and cities, and it has been absolutely fantastic. It's been absolutely fantastic to meet and work with people like Izzy who spoke earlier on, various other campaigns. It's been fantastic that in areas up and down the country people have got together, trade unionists, local campaigners, Occupy, environmentalists, have come together and have talked about, we need some alternatives. What is this about? We're interested in saving the planet and in providing jobs for people. Is there a way forward in it? A few things that I think would be really have brilliantly come out of it, or have come out of it brilliantly. Somebody mentioned the climate skeptics before, maybe you mentioned the climate skeptics. It's interesting actually that, how they have to give these audits of who's walked through 10 Downing Street or 11 Downing Street before, well they've got to do it, haven't they? And there was all that sort of donors scandal as well. Guess what? Guess who walked through 10 and 11 Downing Street just before the budget, just before the energy bill? All the lobbyists from oil and gas. From the climate skeptics, one of the characters who paid David Cameron a load of money Nigel Lawson made his way through, of course. One of the characters who paid lots of money to David Cameron was Michael Hinz, the CEO of a hedge fund and one of the main financial backers of Nigel Lawson's climate skeptic website, the Global Warming Foundation. So these are the kind of characters that have been lobbying government, and they've got the policy that they want, alongside the 100 Tory MPs who lobbied against wind power. One of the things that I must admit I really did enjoy about the caravan was that we've got a very, very good video, DVD I think they call it these days, where we've sort of tried to put together the case for mini climate jobs on a DVD. You can download it, it would be absolutely brilliant if you bought a copy from us tonight. Slightly reduced rate I think they're going at this moment because we've got a few left over from the caravan. And we saw lots of increased hits on the website for showing of the DVD. We thought, oh, this is really good, the caravan's having a great impact. Turns out that the hits were coming because one of the climate skeptic websites in America had picked up on the fact that we were on our climate jobs caravan, and they posted about it. The website's called What's Up With That. It's a very famous climate skeptic website. It's one of the ones that really lobbied against the climate scientists in the run of the Copenhagen talks. But I was actually really proud, because they were emailing nasty emails to us as well, saying, you people are a waste of time, what the hell are you doing this for, you're never going to get anywhere. So it's really worth, if you've got nothing better to do with the time, clearly I don't, to go onto their website, because there, all the blogs really expose these people. They are not at all interested in the climate, they're not interested in a meaningful discussion about whether or not climate change is happening. All the blogs that talk about the climate caravan are just one long diatribe against lefties, against the welfare state, against taxpayers' money being used for. It just completely exposes them as a horrible right-wing bunch of charlatans. For those of you who may not have realised this up until now. Another very important thing that came out of the Climate Jobs Caravan was one of the MPs in the North West, Bolton North MP, has initiated an EDM. 17 MPs have signed it, which is absolutely excellent. But the really crucial thing is what people have spoken about, which is the grassroots organisation. It's people coming together. together locally to fight, to campaign and to lobby for it. So I just want to finish on that. We tried to organise something called a Climate Job Centre, of which there are cards down there. Please take one. The idea was, just what could we have that's imaginative, where people might be interested. Now, Izzy's already spoken about the fact this was, really quite shocking in a way. Someone emailed me and said, a lot of people are coming, to these climate jobs caravan job centre cards. They're not very good because people think they're real jobs. And, we've all put a lot of work into this. I'm thinking, what's this person moaning about? So I emailed back very angrily, well, the card's very good. I don't know what they're complaining about here. And after it took a while to sink in that actually what was happening is that people were turning up because they thought it was a job. That's how desperate things are. The van turns up and it's got jobs on the side of it and people think it's a job. And young people are turning up desperate because they are desperate for work, despite all the lies and nonsense that are spoken about young people. But we'd set up this climate job centre with the idea that we would get young people and old people and middle-aged people and all the rest of it to write down, I would like a climate job because. And that was what we wanted to take with us to the DWP. So earlier on today, we had a little thing outside the DWP and we took with us the messages that we're collecting. Now, Tony's got over there some copies of it, and I wouldn't quite like him to pass them around. Don't read them while I'm talking, obviously, because that's just awful. But pass them around, because I do think that this is one of the most fantastic things that I have read in a very, very long time. This was from Liverpool. They had a brilliant day in Liverpool, really did the business. Loads of people came to the store. So this is 76 people in Liverpool filling in that I would like a climate job because. I just want to read a few of them. You see that you're using that, so I'm not to read it while I was talking. I would like to save the planet and the animals in the forest. There's a typo there, it's not clear if it's the forest. I want a job. Yeah, that's quite right. I want a job. The young deserve jobs. We work hard and we get nothing for it. We need to help. The economy is stalling while the current system pollutes the earth. It will take a lot of work on infrastructure to create sustainable future. So why not kill two birds with one stone, not literally, and invest in our green future? It's hard to live on the dole, and I want a better life for my family. I want a climate job because I want water to drink and clean air to breathe. The young generations can be wasted, and I want more for my grandchildren. And thus it goes on to help the ants. Didn't get that one. To save the bees. And thus it goes on. But, it is absolutely brilliant, this, because it tells you everything that is going on in our communities. It tells you, one, that people do not care about the environment. People do care about the environment. And this whole idea that the climate skeptics won the argument, they didn't win the argument. They have managed to squeeze it out of the press. They have managed to make it so that people feel that there is nothing that can be done about the problem, but people do care about the environment as well as people care about our jobs. The final thing I want to say is this. Thank you, Tony. The issue becomes ever more pressing. I mentioned before, it's absolutely clear that there is a huge rejection of the austerity measures across the country. In lots of areas that we visited, people have got together, and what they're planning to do in local communities is put together a petition for their local area. So in Sheffield, there is a petition for 10,000 climate jobs for Sheffield. These are real jobs in Sheffield that would make a difference in terms of reducing emissions and put people back to work. In that area and in other areas, if you get 5,000 signatures on a petition, you get the council to debate, you get the issue taken out much more, with a much wider voice and lobbying. That's great, and that's absolutely fantastic, but this is a national issue as well, and we have to fight for it to be a national issue. So the final thing I want to say is this. Again, people have already said it. If you're in a union branch and you haven't already got the motion through your branch, get it through your branch. If you're not in a union branch, get together with people in your local area and talk about what you can do about any climate jobs. We have to take it from being a report into being a meaningful campaigning activity that is going on in our communities, and we have to take it onto the national stage. In October of this year, October the 20th, the TUC will call for a national demonstration against austerity. I think we will have made a big step forward if on that demonstration we have got people in contingent with banners saying 1 million climate jobs now as a central theme to that demonstration, as a recognition that we've got a job to do to save the planet and to put people into a meaningful, dignified work that they should be doing in the 21st century.
Suzanne, thank you. There was one or two things at the very introduce speakers, which is fine. I've never actually introduced a performance poet. So Pete, that's great. Thank you very much. Come up and do your stuff.
Hello everyone, hi. Crap. So you don't need that. Before me at the end if you want to. Hi, I just wanted to start by saying, I'll keep it brief because I know we've all been sat here a long time. I think it's really